And I am like opening my eyes as wide as I can to try and see what the heck it is, because it stopped about 10 yards on the inside of the woods and it's dark. I cannot see it. And I'm really trying to open my eyes and look and see if I can see anything. And it just stops and it's standing there.
And I look over to my side on my right, and there's these two silver orbs. And these silver orbs are staying exactly beside each other, and they take off and they go back across the creek where we found the tracks at, and they shoot up to like 6 foot, 7 foot in the air.
Hi guys, thank you all so much for joining me back here again on the 401 Files. It's an absolute pleasure, as I always say, to be joined by so many like-minded people from all around the world. In about the next 25 minutes, 30 minutes, I'm going to be joined by a guy called G. He's driving down from Plymouth, which is about 6.5 hours drive from where I live. And roughly in about 30 minutes time, like I've just said, he will be turning up here at my front door. He's going to be staying over tonight, then we're going to head out to the moors. We're going to get a fire going. I'm going to show him that area. And then tomorrow, I think that we're probably going to get to about 2 or 3 more hotspots around where I live. And I'm going to show G what it's all about, show him some of these areas where I spend most of my time filming and operating in these areas. So you guys kick back, relax, and hopefully, like I said, you will enjoy.
As I'm about to start this long journey from Plymouth to North Yorkshire, there's 3 main emotions and thoughts that are running through my head: excitement, anticipation, and fear. It's about meeting Ben face to face for the first time. We've had a friendship over the last few years that's been long distance, and that presents a lot of challenges. So it's going to be exciting to finally meet Ben face to face and get out with him in his territory and in his neck of the wood. Being a fan of what Ben does and his investigations, I know that he comes across some very scary, thought-provoking evidence, and I'm scared. I've got to be honest, I'm scared about what we'll find and what we'll experience, but it's also leading me back to that first emotion of excitement. So let's start this journey and let's get on the road. There's another tripod that I use with it, but I've forgotten the tripod, so I wouldn't be able to use it with the tripod anyway. But also it's not holding charge properly when it's charging, so the last few times I've taken it out, I've been having problems with it. It's hence why I moved over to this thing. So here we are on the first night with Ben from the 401 Files, taking me out to his shelter on the Yorkshire Moors, which is going to be cool. Well, we were just having a chat about hypnotherapy, because we've both sort of had experiences when we were younger, and it's something that I've been thinking about, and it's something that you've been thinking about in regards to that hypnotherapy, because you've told me a lot about your experience that happened when you were younger, and there's parts of it that are quite chilling, and I'm sure at the time they were quite scary. Yeah. Are you worried that with the hypnotherapy that it may access memories that are going to leave you even more terrified about the experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Mainly as well because I've always thought that there was more to that story, more to that day than I can recall. Like, even now when I think back, I only remember it in certain little bits here and there, like certain details. But there's something that doesn't sit right with me. Yeah. And I've always said, look, I think there's something more to that day. It just doesn't seem right. The way this thing walked off, the way that I got back on the bus, that doesn't seem like a normal thing that would happen after seeing something otherworldly. So yeah, I'd be scared, if they came out and said there's more to that story, you actually went somewhere, or there was 2 of these things, anything like that they bring forward to me during the hypnotic regression, I think would be terrifying.
Yeah, I feel very much the same. Right, well, let's get out into the Yorkshire Moors and the wilderness. It's going to be superb. Let's go.
Absolutely.
When it had turned and made eye contact with me, not only could I, out of its left eye, I could see that its eye wasn't the dark red or black that a lot of people described. I could see its irises, I could see its pupil, and the resemblance of it was so much to our own.
David Attenborough should represent us in the talks with aliens.
So it's so strange because me and G have just pulled into the garage to go grab a few snacks for when we're out tonight. And there is the newspaper stand with all the front page articles. And I was just about to say to G that the last time I was up at Bempton, which is also another hotspot here in the UK, there was a similar scenario. I pulled up at the garage, there it was, front page of the paper, something about a UFO sighting actually at Bempton. So I thought I'd just have a quick little look. And again, on the front page of the paper is another story regarding extraterrestrials. And G was just saying that they're saying if we was to ever make contact with aliens, they feel like David Attenborough would be the guy to break the ice, pretty much. But I just thought that was quite coincidental and a bit strange.
It's interesting to think that there's people already starting to think about the fact that we need someone to represent us in those talks with an alien species. So that's a bit strange in itself that we're starting to get to the point where we need to nominate the right person to speak to them. But he would be a good representative of the human race, I think. So
if they spoke English.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. So yeah, if you just explain to me.
If you take the cap away, so you just got like a dome of the cap, it basically felt like I was in the top of the ceiling of the craft. There was like a bottom of the craft where I could see through it. It was transparent, and not at all times. And then when we came to a stop and we got to the bit where I saw the other craft landing, the craft kind of went like that, and I stayed in the middle, so I
stuck to the roof.
Yeah, so I could then see out. So it's almost then like I was in a sort of side pod, and I was looking out horizontal instead of looking down vertical. And the whole time I was pinned and not able to move. So if I was to make an estimate, because I don't recall looking from side to side, that my head was strapped into something, or again, as we were just discussing, whether it was G-force that was just keeping me in that position. And again, if you've ever been on one of those rides where the G-force, you can't move your neck without like it seriously hurting. So maybe it was just
so when the
G-force.
craft tilted up and you got to see across the horizon for the first time, was the craft actually moving at that point, or was it standstill? Like, was it just hovering, or?
It was just hovering.
Yeah.
Like literally, it stopped, and then.
So there must have been some device holding you there, because at that point.
It just started going like that, and then as I could then see horizontally, that's when I saw the other craft land in the field.
Have you got your GoPro on?
Huh?
Have you got your GoPro on?
Yeah, I just put little bits with it as well, which can be used like tripod shots as well.
Yeah. So G, we're about to start cutting through this forest now. What's your first impressions?
Dark.
Yeah.
Very dark. Ominous.
We've actually just took a drive up onto the moors as well. Like, what did you think when you come over the crest and you see how it all opens up? I mean, there's similar things near where you live, but
yeah, there's like parts of it that are very similar to Dartmoor down in Devon, and certainly parts of Bodmin in Cornwall. But it's the thing that I pointed out to you in the car is that unlike a lot of I guess it's where Yorkshire's like a lot more bigger and expansive. We were in an area there where I was just saying 360, looking around, you couldn't see a single building.
Yeah.
Unless somebody is on the road driving and they're very small, narrow, roads, or somebody's out walking, hiking, nobody's going to see anything that's there. It's a very, for us here in the UK, it's a really good remote location. So yeah. I'm very impressed so far.
We lived in an apartment on the 7th floor, downtown Izmir. And in the middle of the night, I was taken from my bed in a blue-white light. And I was taken through a pane of glass. I ended up aboard a craft, and I lost time. And when I came to, I was lying on a a narrow gurney.
Well, we've arrived at Ben's den in the woods, and it's mostly undisturbed, which is great. But I'm so impressed with this build. It looks amazing. Can't wait to spend some time, get the fire started, and wait for it to get dark, which even when it's light, this place is crazy creepy. I just joked around with Ben and said this is a witch's wet dream, because he would point out a tree that just didn't look like it belonged, and that it looked like a witch's tree. And I just said that the whole place feels like a witch's wet dream, because it is freaky, it's spooky, and I can't imagine what it's going to feel like when it's dark and Ben comes out here by himself in the dark, and that is crazy. Oh my God, I just thought I saw something. I'm on edge now. I'm on high alert, and I just thought I saw something. Check you out in a minute.
So we've just dropped bits of kit back at the camp that we don't really need. Everything's going to be safe there. No one comes through this way. I've had that shelter there for 2 years now. I always leave firewood behind and pots and pans. Nothing's been touched in that time, so I'm sure they'll be fine just for a few hours. We're going to head down to the river and do a bit of filming down there. Maybe do some talking about these phenomena that happen and occur in this area. And then we're going to come back to camp and light a fire to carry on those conversations. But right now, it's not too cold. The light is becoming an issue as it gets gradually darker and darker, but once we're around the fire, everything should be fine.
Just come from a clearing, this first clearing, well, big clearing in the woods. But then we hit this valley.
We were just saying, weren't we, Jay, about the trees? Everything pretty much still seems like it's dead, but you made a good point that because it is so dense here, the only place that looks like it's still alive is the tops, which have reached the light.
Yeah, so you've got all the foliage and leaves at the top, but the bottom parts of the trees are all kind of dead. And you can go up to these branches and just like literally snap them off because they're not got much life left in them. But then if you go to the top of the tree where it can get light, that's where you've got the tree is still alive. So it's alive in the roots, but you know, it's not getting what it needs for these branches, and it's because the trees are just so densely packed in this area of woods.
Yeah, and I guess like we were just talking about wildcats here in Britain or anything else that's roaming this land undiscovered, places like this would be an ideal location to stay hidden because the trees are so densely knit together. You can't really see far off in the distance, so anything beyond 100 meters could move from point A to point B and you probably would never see it. If you cut into that, it makes a really good sharpener for your knife. You know, in the same way that you'd use a leather belt.
Yeah.
So I think like our ancestors and stuff used it for sharpening tools.
Ben's just talking about this that we found on the tree, some crazy ass fungus that looks alien. It's huge. I've never seen fungus like that before ever.
Okay, so we're just going to sit around the fire, guys, and have a bit of a candid conversation, chew the fat over a few different topics. I have brought the EMF reader with me. I'm not sure if you guys can see this. I've brought the EMF reader with me. We're going to sit that on the side away from both of us while we're talking. If this does go off at any point, there is no electrical devices around this, and therefore there is really no reason why this should go off. But I'm only putting this there during the conversation, just to see what happens, really. But yeah, enjoy the chat.
Yeah, so something that I've been dying to talk to you about is, am I right in thinking that you're more of the, less of the flesh and bone and more of the alien Bigfoot? Yeah, well, anyway, so something that I've probably not told you is that I have a bachelor's degree in Native American Studies.
Yeah.
And Native American Studies.
Yeah.
And American studies.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to be working on this theory for Sasquatch and Bigfoot that not only is using all the knowledge and the stuff that I've gained over the years from my Native American studies,
Yeah.
but I've also got into a bit of medical science and sociology in terms of building up this theory. So again, it's awkward for me to talk about because I don't want to blurt it all out right now, because I want to save that for the reveal of the video. But one thing I'll tell you that it's heavily focused around is, and I'm sure you've heard about this before, but in a lot of Native American legends, folklore and stories, Sasquatch is more referred as hairy people.
Yeah.
So it's really going into that a lot. You know, the main thing that you would need to think of is the expression hairy people, and I can't wait to share it with everybody. But I was hinting to it earlier on as we were walking through the woods that you know, I don't think it's going to get a lot of love from a lot of people that are in the Bigfoot community, because you know I'm really trying to look at other options that present more of a scientific background to why Bigfoot, Sasquatch, or bipedal entities that are seen around the world could potentially be explained.
So what's your take? Do you think that Bigfoot is a flesh and blood creature? Do you think it's something else?
I would say that I'm not. You know, we talk a lot about being open-minded, right? And we talk a lot about being open-minded, right? And we talk a lot about being open-minded, right? And open-minded skeptics. But again, I don't even. Recently, I've been dropping that word skeptic.
Yeah.
Because I think open-minded just says enough, really. Because I think open-minded means that you want to explore both ends of the spectrum and look at all reasonable options and explanations for things. So I wouldn't say either way that I'm that camp or that camp, because I think there's enough context to, you know, if Bigfoot or these, you know, because when you think about it, you've got to think about it on a global perspective.
Yeah.
You know, you've got the Alamasti, you've got the Yeti, you've got the skunk ape, you've got the wild men of the Yowie in Australia. You know, so everywhere where around the world this sort of phenomenon in some sort of form, you know, sits. So if there is even 5 to 3 to 2% of those accounts, those reports are real, then it means that something's going on globally, right? And how does something go on globally if it isn't some other explanation like the alien connection or interdimensional connection?
Yeah.
There was something I think you were saying on one of your videos recently where I don't know if it was you or it was somebody else, where, you know, if there is multiple dimensions existing in the same time and space, you know, there's times when you could just accidentally get a view into that perspective. I think it was you saying
on my last
that
video,
they could be seeing us
as the cryptids.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, if you start to go down the avenue of interdimensional, it's something that a lot of pseudoscientists are really trying to explore and look into the fact that I think it was it Einstein that said that he thinks there's 4 dimensions. So, you know, it's not outside of the realms of science. It's very much, you know, people call it pseudoscience or fringe science, but to me, pseudoscience or fringe science is just science that hasn't been, you know, fully proven yet. But
well, I mean, at one point, the Earth being flat, or the Earth being round, sorry, was pseudoscience. I'm really weird, like, because I'm more of a believer that Bigfoot or an extraterrestrial is extraterrestrial than flesh and blood. But in the same breath, I also believe that they could be flesh and blood ones out there existing. especially when we talk about places like the Pacific Northwest, Alaska, and places like that. So I'm in this constant debate within my own mind as to what I believe. Does that make sense? Because I'm not ruling out that there are flesh and blood ones that exist.
Well, that's the essence of being open-minded.
Yeah.
Is that you're not rigid, you're not fixed. Today, you might feel that it's a good chance that, but you might absorb something tomorrow or read something that kind of makes you, and you're just open. A lot of people would say, they would look at that on the negative side as saying that, like, you're impressionable and you're just gullible to what other people say. But I don't think that's the case. And we've had so many conversations, you and I, and you know, I know that you're of the same ilk, that you just you know, you don't see something there and just naturally believe that because you've seen it on the internet or somewhere else like that it's true. We're both of that same ilk, but you know, there are a lot of people, unfortunately, that do, and that gives a lot of time the phenomena a bad rap, because people will, you know, I found myself having to leave certain groups on social media because just some of the content that's shared on there is just so outlandish, you know, shadows in the woods and stuff, and it's the story then that goes along with that. Everybody's capable of pareidolia. I mean, I had pareidolia earlier on, like when we first arrived here. I thought I saw somebody stood in the woods, you know, but then I quickly realized that it was just, you know, the shape of a tree. But the problem is that certain people are more impressionable, and you know, more susceptible to flights of fancy, and making those pareidolia connections is something real. But
and you know, something that I always try and push on the channel is to try and rid yourself of this fear of being scared to be wrong. Because if we're scared to be wrong, it means that we'll stand by things even if we know they are wrong. Does that make sense? Like, even if we have pareidolia, we know it's an upturned tree root, not a man standing in the woods. It doesn't matter how many comments come in saying you've got this wrong. This is an upturned tree root. People who are scared to be wrong, even though they know now the information that's coming forward is true, they won't want. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They'll still follow through and push this narrative. No, it was a man stood in the woods. It was, and I think that we have to stop being scared of being wrong, because that's what's damaging these phenomena. You know, like if you know you're wrong, hold your hands up. I mean, for example, recently I did a video, and I wouldn't say I was speculating on what this thing was, but it was unknown to me. There was a box up in a tree. You've probably seen it on the video.
Yeah.
Somebody came forward and said it's a pine miting box. The minute I saw and Googled this myself, it was exactly the same. It was a pine miting box. I accepted that.
Yeah.
Now, what some people would do is say, no, it's not a pine miting box. It's something different. There's more to this. And that is the skill, is being able to say, okay, that's fine, and not taking offense to that. Like, there's nothing personal about being wrong. None of us are perfect, and you're not always going to get it right.
No.
And to hold your hands up and say, well, I thought it was something different, I've never seen one before, that's perfectly fine. But yeah, far too often, like you just said there, on social media, especially Facebook and places like that, I see people who I know that they're wrong, still arguing. And it doesn't get us anywhere.
Yeah. When I come across something that I don't know what it is, one, it excites me, and two, it creates this thirst that I've got to find out what it is.
Yeah.
And when you did that video and I saw that box, I was just like, I don't know what that is.
I was
like, I desperately need to find out. And I messaged you, didn't I? And I said, I cannot find, you know, I looked through all kind of forestry equipment, you know, various other things, and I just couldn't find any reference to this kind of box. And then luckily you had a subscriber who commented on the video and you know, mentioned what they thought it was. And then as soon as you told me, I then also did the same as you, and I googled it and then saw it, and I knew it was something to do with the actual essence of the tree, because you could see the way it was going into the tree trunk. So I thought it was some sort of resin collector or something like that, but it was a great find, and it's a great example of just how sometimes, you know, it's great to come out and do things like this, but you sort of see things and you hear things, and you have to try and apply. The first thing you've got to try and do is apply some logic to it, and just take a moment to just go, what is this, or what could it be? Whereas, yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of people within the paranormal different categories where you could sort of call it mass hysteria, really.
So, if there's anything in this forest with us right now that wishes to make presence known, please step near the device to my right hand side. It did flash as I said that. If that was you that made the device flash, please step closer again. I can't tell if it's my eyes playing trick. Can you see that?
No, I can't see it. I'm gonna just stand out here for a minute.
If there is anybody in the vicinity with us here in this forest that wishes to make their presence known, please step too close to the device. If you could make the device go up to the yellow symbol in the middle. Definitely flashed.
So what does it mean when it flashes
It means
green?
there's an electromagnetic field near it. Something's producing electric near it.
And if it was a strong electric field, it would flash the 2?
Yeah, red is the highest. The human body can't produce it. It's got to be electricals like stereos, phones, and... If that's you making the device flash, please step closer again. Can you make the lights go higher?
We welcome you to communicate with us. Communicate with us in any way you feel makes you happy. If it's making the lights flash on this piece of equipment that we bought, please make them flash. Or if you want to talk to us in some way by making some sort of noise,
There's been lots of reports in this area of strange things happening, paranormal. If you are one of these reports, or you believe you know what's causing these reports, please step close to the device off to my right. I will carry on talking and see if it moves.
okay. And obviously what we're doing is very rare. There won't be a lot of people that would be out in this kind of location. We was discussing earlier on, unless they're, they'd be on the Yorkshire moors if they were walking a dog, if they were hiking, if they were mountain biking, if they were rock climbing, but they don't venture like you do into these dense wooded areas, that are difficult to even just walk on, because, unless you work for the Forestry Commission or something like that, why would you do it? So I do think that there are areas that, you could have activity.
What? What was that?
Sorry, it might have just been the smoke and the branches. I just thought I saw a face there.
If that was someone close by to us, can you please step close to the device?
Like, it's weird because what I saw, like I said, it looked like a face, but it wouldn't be at the height that a face would be. So unless it was the smoke going through the branches. Hold on.
As you said that, I saw this go up, but that could have been my eyes. I'll have to watch back on the footage, but I could have sworn that this moved up. So just to bring you guys up to speed, me and G was mid-conversation there, and G saw what he believes was a face. At the same time, I saw the lights on the EMF reader move up. Now, I'm not 100% sure that they did. I'll have to watch this back on the footage. But I could have sworn at the same time these lights went up, which is very strange.
You can obviously all see that it was like, oh, I'm sat in Ben's den, and just over the den is you know, a tree and there's branches.
What did the face look like? Human? Was it the same size? Was it?
I only saw it for a flash, but it looked like it smiled. Like it just looked like a face. You know when somebody's in the dark and then they come forward into the light like that? Yeah. It was like that, but it wasn't white light, it was almost brown light. But what I'm trying to say is that the branches that are up where I saw the face, the smoke at times from the fire is going through there, so it could have been the movement and the smoke playing with my eyes against the branches. But then when I stood up just then to have a look and try and get more of an assessment of what it would look like, I thought I saw movement further on beyond, about a sort of 2 meters beyond. I thought I saw movement again at the same sort of height and level.
If that was you that G saw, can you please step close to the device?
It was so quick.
It literally went up to the middle where I think to go. If that was you that G saw, can you please just move close to the device again? Let's just go up again.
Holy hell.
And it went up to yellow, the one I asked specifically. Okay, so if you remember earlier on in the conversation, I asked for anything around us in this vicinity to move the lights up to the yellow, which is a very specific command. G saw the face, and as I've just called out now for anything to step close to the device, the lights have moved up to the yellow, which we previously asked, which is a very specific command.
As our conversations continued through the night, my eyes began to weigh heavy as we both sat there staring into the fire, fixated by the last few dying embers. We decided that it was eventually time to call it a night. The journey home was pleasantly quiet, with neither of us really saying much of anything. Fatigued and full of new information, I guess. Our minds were still in the process of digesting the night's conversations. As we drove along, staring far out to the lonely road ahead, I knew that tomorrow would yet be another great day of mystery and adventure.
So this is day 2. G's just nipped back into the house to get his drinks canteen, and today, or well this morning, we're going to head up to the coast, visit places like Bempton Cliffs, Flamborough Head, notorious hotspots for UFO sightings and other strange reports. After that, we're going to take the 40-minute drive back towards where we are now, and the last stop of the day will be Dolby Forest, which is where you guys have seen me investigating for the last few videos. It's been a great 2 days talking to someone that's very like-minded. Like I said, G is a subscriber on the channel. We share a lot in common, and so I'm very excited for today.
So me and G, we've just come into this wooded area. We're only about 20 metres away from this historical church that's behind me. If you guys have been back through my older videos, you will have seen that I stumbled across this place a few years ago, and G wanted to come see it because in that video I found the remains of birds that had been sacrificed, like they'd had their heads removed, and there was also a necklace made of teeth. It was clearly obvious that some kind of sadistic rituals had been taking place in this woods. So I said to G, we'll come by and see if there's anything new here. The smashed urns that I found have gone. I can't find the teeth. However, there are some very, very strange things still occurring in this woods, which give me the creeps. So I'm going to flip the camera now and let you guys see what we've discovered. So the first thing that we noticed is obviously the remains of this bird here. Now this isn't just your average bird. This is definitely not a pigeon or anything like that, or a blackbird or a sparrow. This to me looks like maybe a kestrel. Now that by itself wouldn't be weird because, like G just said, it could be a fox. But there's feathers that have been stuck into the ground around the kill. Now those feathers haven't just landed like that. The dirt's been pressed up around them to hold them in place. If you come over this way, this really strengthens my point that someone has been here dabbling with things that really we don't understand, because this is a makeshift altar. You can see they've wedged a stick in the background there. I'll just try and show you guys this. They've wedged a stick in there. I'm not sure what the purpose for that is, maybe holding the bird down. But I'm assuming they place the bird on the top. That's where they make the sacrifice. And this bottom part is where they would place a bowl. As the blood would run down into the bowl, they'd capture the blood and do the ceremony. But that's clearly not natural. I mean, we could push further back into the wood, because I do believe that there's probably more going on down that way, but we're not supposed to be in this area. There's always the risk of someone coming out and asking us what we're doing. And also, as we go further on that way, the woods does become a bit more dense. So I think we're going to scour around a little bit more in here, see if we can find anything else, and then maybe go up to the church and just have a look around there.
Yeah, I want to go up to the church and just sort of see, get a feel for that, what's going on there. If that, in that trunk, is...
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
And what's scary is whether, like you said, whether the people that are doing this are doing it so close to the church, as if to say, you know, up yours.
Yeah.
Or whether it's the people in the church that live a double life and also do some strange stuff. But that is probably one of the strangest things that I've seen, and just the sheer volume of bird remains around here is
Insane.
you know, and there's no obvious signs of a fox den or...
It's just such a very creepy place. And, you know, I'm just going to flip the camera 1 second and talk to you guys. For me, I think what is the most creepiest part of all this is that I was just saying to G on the drive down, now if this was a built-up area, you know, we're in a city or somewhere like that, you might say it's kids messing around, trying to scare people. Whoever's doing this doesn't care whether we find it or not. They don't care about people's opinions. They're doing this because they're really into sadistic occults and rituals. You know, this is in the middle of nowhere. So whoever's doing this really does have a passion for what they're doing.
Also, you made a really good point that the bird remains that are there, it's not like a pigeon, it looks like a bird of prey, like you said, like a kestrel or something like that. So in terms of a fox or a small mammal like that, taking it out, it would be a bit challenging.
And you've got to think as well, whoever's doing this, I'm assuming, is coming in the dead of night. So for them to come here in the dead of night to practice this stuff, it just makes you think, like, it leaves so many questions, like what happened in this person's life, what's led them down this path to start dabbling with things like this. There's so many questions now just from finding simple things like this that, you know, really gets my brain thinking.
Before we even got to this location, as we came off into the church, I was just shocked with the amount of, like, just bird
Remains. Yeah.
It's crazy.
So we've just sat down in this very small concentrated area. You can see in front of us there is a mound, which is very suspicious to me at this point for this reason. Around the mound, we've found very large bones. Now I don't know what these are, I wouldn't like to speculate, but if they're an animal, they're a big animal. Because here we have some kind of a ball joint. There's some kind of a fragmentation there of something much bigger as well.
Yeah. Big bone there, big bone there.
These aren't small bones, you know, these aren't just your average chicken bones. These are from something very, very large. Dare I say it, even human.
Over here is just some bones as well.
I mean, to give you an idea of scale, this is my hand. Let's get this plant out. So that is a large bone.
See all the bones over here, bone there, all the way through.
There's also an urn there that's been stolen from the graveyard.
That's a big bone there as well. Bone there. Just like sitting in a field of bones.
Now, I don't really like to speculate, but I don't know, I've never seen a ball joint bone as big as that. It's not from, you know, a chicken or a fox or anything like that, it's just way too big.
Just bones everywhere. Freaking me out. And they're not your normal kind of, like you say, like a chicken or a
Definitely
small
not.
bird or
Definitely
whatever.
not.
These are like leg.
There's also this urn as well, which has clearly been stolen from the cemetery. So there's one of two things here. Either someone's bringing whatever this is in the woods to kill it, or they're digging up parts from the cemetery and bringing it in here as part of their ritual. Either way, whoever's dabbling with this kind of stuff is, yeah, they're living in a world that I'm not familiar with. Okay, so we've got suspicions that we're being watched here, so we're going to move out of this area. There's another load of bird killings over that way. Gee, feathers on the floor. But yeah, there's a guy sat in a van. Like I said, this is a very out of the way church, so for this guy just to pull up in this lay-by and sit watching us is quite unnerving. So we're going to move out of here because, like I said, we just found some really, really big bones.
What definitely look like human bones, and we found 2 shotgun shells as well, so let's get back to the road.
As we watched the mysterious man watching us from the distance, I had many thoughts running through my head. Who was this man? Why would he choose to stop there? And did he have anything at all to do with some of the gruesome and disturbing discoveries that we had just made? We wasn't willing to stick around and find out. We both decided that heading for the church would be our next best move. I guess the idea of placing ourselves back in the open felt more secure than creeping around in a hotspot for satanic rituals and other very dark occult practices. Unless, of course, the church themselves were hiding a very dark and sinister secret.
We're nowhere near Halloween. Why are there bats hanging?
That's what I was just going to say the same thing to you.
The bats are hanging up everywhere, which
I was going to say the same
is
thing.
not a symbol of the Christian church.
The reason why we're speculating about these bats is because G made a point while in that tree line looking at all that sadistic stuff that maybe it could be someone from the church doing it. And then lo and behold, we walk in the church and G's just pointed out we're nowhere near October, there's no reason to have bats hanging around, but yet everywhere is bats. It's definitely got an eerie vibe to it.
Yes.
So there's actually mushrooms growing on the inside of the church.
So, as you look around this church, it looks like a typical village, local community church. There's something that's really off about it though, and I don't think this church is used very much by anybody because there's bird shit over everything. There's mushrooms growing out of the wall, and there's what looks like a layer of dust all on the pew seating. I don't think this church is used for regular ceremonies or anything, and if anything it kind of feels like some of it's propped up to make it look like you know, if you walked in, this is a church that's used all the time by the local community, but how can that be if there's bird shit over everything? And it's just, you know, as we all know, churches are, you know, dusty and whatnot, but this doesn't even look like it's used or it's clean. So I just wanted to say that to camera because there's something off.
So the night that I was working the overnight shift, it was probably 2 o'clock in the morning. I got my flashlight, my keys, and I was walking down the south hallway, and I walked past the whirlpool room, and I took a step back because I thought I saw someone in there, and I flipped on the light, and it was Mabel, and I'm like, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. What in the hell is she doing up here? So I said, just a minute, Mabel. And so I went back to the nurse's station because we had phones that we would call each other on in the other buildings. And I called, and the nurse answered. And I said, hey, and I can't remember the nurse's name. I said, I don't know what happened, but Mabel is sitting up here waiting for her bath. I said, I just walked by, saw her in there. I said, did somebody bring her up and we forgot about her and I didn't see her? Because Mabel was really quiet. She wouldn't say anything. And then she got really quiet and she goes, are you kidding me? And I'm like, no, she's sitting up here. And she goes, Kelly, we did 2 o'clock rounds and we found Mabel dead in her bed. She's dead. And I just got this chill and I hung up the phone and I went back down to the whirlpool room. Nobody was in there, and the light was still on. I will never forget that.
We spotted the green man, the sinister green man. Apparently, we were just reading like a flyer on the wall, and it was talking about looking out for a griffin and 2 sinister green men. The green men, for anyone that watches this channel, will probably know that back in the day, like medieval times especially, was a phenomena that is closely related to what we refer to as the wild man of today. Almost like a cryptid. People back in those days believed that this wild man, who was often depicted with ivy growing around his face and weeds, was some kind of wild cryptid living off the land. So that just shows you how far back these reports go of weird people living out in the woods.
So Ben, we were just talking about your experience that you had, you know, as a kid, and you were saying that you have recently been trying to locate the original location where it happened.
Yeah.
How did you go about that? How did you start looking into that?
Originally, I thought that I would never find it. Originally, I thought that it happened such a long time ago and everything's probably changed since then that it would be impossible. But by chance, over the last few months, I found an area that looks identical to what I remember, where my experience took place. And the minute I saw this location, I had a feeling in my chest that told me this is very close, if not the place where it happened. And it was only by chance, like I said, I was stuck in traffic, and while we were stationary, I looked off through the passenger window into a wooded area that had the embankment and the little broken up outhouse in the woods. So that is exactly how I remembered my encounter.
The problem is that, you know, similar to my experience as a child, that passage of time, it makes it difficult, doesn't it? Because, you know, if you try to remember a birthday party that you had when you were 10, and you were asked to relay the details of it, it would be very challenging, right? And that's what a lot of people, I think, forget when we're talking about experiences that happened to us like very many years ago. It's a real frustrating thing to try and fill in the gaps, right? Yeah. And
like there's certain things about what I saw while stuck in traffic looking at this wooded area that I didn't remember. So the way I always recalled this experience was that the bus that I was on pulled into like a lay-by, and then we jumped off the bus and we went at the side of the road. Whereas now there was no lay-by. But again, like I said, this did happen in 1997. The roads have changed obviously since then, and they could have taken that lay-by out. But everything inside me says, if this isn't the place, it's very, very similar to the one that I had the experience in.
Yeah.
So we'd been down to the cliff face, me and my brother, we stood there talking for a little while before deciding to come back up this track. We was actually heading towards the car again on our way home. And it was about this point here where my brother had said, "Did you see that?" And what he was referring to was off in this direction was two amber lights, really large orange coloured lights. And as he saw that, I kind of caught the back end of it as it was blinking out. So I watched it and waited again to see if I could see these lights come back on. They did. This time they were about in this direction here.
Yeah.
And then I thought, okay, this might be a plane. Let's just wait and see if they keep going in the line of travel, which would have been there.
Yeah.
But as it was, the lights reappeared back where they just started and was first seen. So we waited again, and the lights now on a solid colour amber, there wasn't flashing at this point, started to slowly glide back this way. And at that point, we heard the sounds of a fighter plane screech overhead and chase this thing. That's the only way I can describe it, is that they chased it out to sea. And they were out at the horizon there in less than a second. Before the day was over, there was still one last place that I really wanted G to experience. This location is known as the Great Yorkshire Forest, but more importantly than that, it's also known as a hotspot for tales of terrifying cryptids, UFOs, and other strange phenomena like the paranormal.
And it wouldn't be until another probably 5 or 6 years later when I received a report from a young lady around the same time who witnessed the same thing when she was coming home at night in the northern beaches in Narrabeen. And she actually saw this object hovering above the houses, and she got so frightened that she ran to her relative's house, and she had keys to the relative's house, and she went in and hid there for hours before she was glad enough to come back out.
So we're now at another hotspot here in the UK, one that you guys have seen many times before on the channel. This is Dolby Forest, a place notorious for UFO sightings, strange reports of cryptids, and even animal and human mutilations. We're just going to have a scour about the area. It's a beautiful, beautiful day, so we're in no rush right now. And yeah, it's quiet. I actually thought with the weather being so nice that it would be heaving and everybody would be out dog walking, people on mountain bikes, kids at the park, but it's actually really, really quiet, which is perfect for filming. So I'm just gonna pick a random route, and me and G are gonna head off and talk to you guys about what we think and some of our theories regarding these reports. So you guys hopefully are enjoying it so far. If you are, please do give this a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and kick back, continue to enjoy.
I was talking to you about the sinkholes and how if the trees have grown too close together and the sunlight can't get in enough to the forest floor to dry it, what happens is that water collects in caverns sort of underneath the soil and crevices, and eventually you can see that they've obviously logged this area. If you look down there, there's a great big patch of swampy water, and over the years what's happened and why they've probably had to clear this area is because it's become so water drenched that it needs to be cleared and then allowed to dry out and the water evaporate, and then they can re-harvest it again with new trees eventually somewhere down the line. So but it looks really bad here because, as I say, almost like a little mini lake pond has started forming in the middle there.
Because what I saw, literally, I mean, I felt like I would have been like a 3 to 4 year old kid standing next to a basketball player on the Portland Trailblazers. Thing could have picked me up by the back of my neck and just twisting the thumb sideways, probably could have broke my neck. It was that huge.
So we've just been walking through the forest now for about 20-30 minutes. Stopping every now and then obviously to talk and discuss certain things, but yeah, it's been nice. It's been really good. I've enjoyed these last 2 days. It's the first time I've ever done something like this. I mean, I have met up with people before, like other researchers, but in terms of subscribers to the channel, people that are interested in the videos that I make, this is the first time I've been out with someone. So for them to share the same fascination as me and the same intrigue, I love it. It's really good. And I hope in the future I can do more of this. I hope that a lot more people get in touch and, you know, want to come out with me to the locations that I explore, and maybe even do their own filming. The more people we have walking around with cameras, doing this kind of stuff, talking about these certain subjects, the better. That can only be a good thing. But as I was saying to G earlier on today, is that a lot of these places take on a different energy completely, like a different atmosphere once nightfall comes. And that the same can be said, you know, with anywhere, not just a hot spot, but anywhere in the world. As soon as nightfall comes, certain senses that are built into us as humans, you know, they kick in, and we get this heightened state of awareness. But when you spend nightfall in an area that has reports, it's a different kind of fear. It's a different place altogether. And you know, sometimes when you come out and you don't capture anything, there's no weird noises, no weird anomalies, and sometimes you don't even have much to say on the subject because your mind's gone blank. It's just beautiful to listen to the sounds of nature. So I just want to get G on camera to prove this point, is that over the last few videos I've been reporting finding these balloons like quite mysteriously, and quite a large number of them as well. And there seems to be like mixed opinions. Some people think it's just natural, some people think that is very strange. But we have literally just found another balloon, and it was almost right on cue as well, because I was about to say to G, one of the weird things that I'm finding and discovering here is these balloons. And just before I even finished saying that sentence, G.
Yeah, I was just going to say I'm absolutely gutted that we didn't film it and capture it, because what's really important about it is, first of all, you know, you've obviously brought me to this location, and you didn't then sort of take me out of the car and take me somewhere where you would have known where a balloon was. I said to you when we parked up, I had no idea which direction you were going to take us, but I said to you, can we go back there about 50 meters, because I saw that really interesting sort of rectangular clearing. So you said yes, fine. So we came back here, and then literally as we were getting into the woods, straight away, balloon on the floor.
Yeah.
Now it's a commercial balloon, so again, like you were just saying, whether people think there's anything paranormal to it or not, it's this really weird, strange coincidence. Like any strange coincidence is interesting and needs an explanation and investigation. We're not saying it's anything related to UFOs or to cryptids or anything like that, but it's just weird because balloons get let off all the time and obviously pop and fall, but the sheer number that you've been finding, and then literally we come into the woods, we're about 10 meters in, boom, balloon on the floor. And you were about to almost start talking to me about something, and then we were like, what's that on the floor? A balloon. But we didn't get any footage of it because just completely forgot to, but it's a real shame, and I just want to go on camera as backing up that you didn't like try to direct me and try and show me something. Like it was I was leading, and I was asking where to go, so really interesting.
So this is, I was just saying to G, if this isn't weird in the way that we think of weird, like supernatural and cryptids, etc., it's got to be naturally weird, because I've never seen two trunks of a tree, you know, joined together, creating what people call tree structures. First one comes in a massive arc, and is pinned at this end to the ground, while the other one is snapped at roughly the same way up the trunk as where the bend starts. Again, that has to be a rarity. I've never seen this, full stop. What do you think, G?
You're right. It's weird that here's the strangest of coincidence. You've got two offshoots of the same root of the tree. One is bending that direction. Then the other one, if it was a storm, winds broke it in the same direction as the other one's bending. Like, that's already, like, why didn't it break it the other way? Or
and I guess my question to that would be, why did the storm only specifically choose this tree when just there is a tree exactly the same width, same size, and yet they're all still standing? In fact, the one directly behind you right now, G, is a lot thinner.
yeah, this one,
Yeah, if a storm was going to come through this way, why did it? And also as well, we're in the middle of the forest here, kind of. We're central, we're not on the edge. Usually tree damage from storms, you know, it's on the edge. It would have to be a severe storm to target this one specific tree surrounded by all the others that aren't damaged, and that just wouldn't make sense. So, I mean, yeah, again, I'm not saying this is anything like cryptid. I know that I know I've got to speak about this stuff because a lot of you guys do believe that, especially in the US, but for me, this is a natural oddity in the way that I've never seen this before. I mean, I've seen bent trees. I've even seen trees snapped. I've never seen one tree providing both. Yeah, like this.
Here's a curiosity. So right here is a similar tree where from the root of the base of the tree it stemmed off into two trunks.
Yeah.
So, you know, and they're both going up really, really straight. What causes one like this to grow in such an arch like it has is just, you know, and you can't see that anywhere else in the forest. So strange mutation of a tree maybe, but there's so many things that are kind of like strangely coincidental. Again, like you just said, Ben, why would a storm or a high wind choose this one tree to break, and then why does it break falling in the direction of where the other part is arching? So
and why do they bend in a direction that points to where the balloon was found? It didn't point left, it didn't point back the opposite way away from the balloon. It's pointing to the direction we just came, which is, again, coincidentally, where we found the balloon. I'm not trying to join dots here, I'm really not, and I know it sounds like that. I'm just saying the facts are we found the balloon in that direction.
Gotta say, for any fans of X-Files, this forest just gives me total Billy Myers vibes. If you've ever seen that episode, I think it's episode 1 and 2 of X-Files, definitely gives me that vibe. I am loving this. Ben's very lucky to live just around the corner from this. I mean, you know, I've got some beautiful areas in my patch of the world in Dartmoor and Bodmin Moor, but this is great. This is great. Well, guys, I've just pulled over at the side of the road on the border of Yorkshire. I'm about to leave the Yorkshire border. Just spent the last 2 days with Ben out on location in his neck of the woods around the Yorkshire moors. And what a fantastic 2 days it's been. I mean, the number of locations that we've been to, simply amazing. The amount of strange things that we've seen blow my mind. I didn't expect that at all, and you can see why you know, Ben can create some amazing content, you know, because he's got a lot on his doorstep that is interesting, and, you know, potentially got strange stuff happening that needs further investigation. I've been collaborating with Ben sort of on and off for the last couple of years. It's great to get out with him in person on location. It's going to be the first of many. I can assure you of that, because it's just great to get out with somebody who's like-minded. You know, if you're watching this and you think that there's not a lot of people that you can talk to about your beliefs or, you know, what you think about anything that's paranormal or strange, then I really recommend that you try and find somebody, because it's good medicine for the mind. Thank you guys for tuning in for this video. Thank you again to Ben for hosting me here in the Yorkshire Moors, and I'll see you all again real soon.
So I'm scanning my woods, and I don't see any kind of outline, but you know, I see trees. There's a couple stumps. There was one stump probably about 5 foot that I kept looking at, because I'm trying to figure out in my mind the stump that I'm looking at. I don't remember it ever being there. I'm like, well, this is kind of weird. Well, I start trying to focus on this stump. Next thing I know, this stump stands up. Now I know that's kind of weird, but this 5 foot stump stood up, and it was about at least 7.5, 8 foot tall, and I could see the silhouette of a head, shoulders. The shoulders were at least 3.5, 4 foot wide. Of course, I know it's not a tree stump anymore because the thing stood up, so I'm thinking, well, maybe it's a bear, but if it's a bear, it's too big to be a bear, and I'm thinking, well, what do I do? Now, you got to remember, this whole time I have my gun up.